So, my food for thought for the night is how self improvement culture treats emotions less as experiences and more as evidence. Because what was once a private act of reflection has turned into this subtle system of metrics and measurements, and just this new way of tracking how evolved one can appear to be, not actually is. And feelings are no longer simply lived or observed, they're analyzed, dissected, categorized, and then compared with other people. And progress is judged not by someone's personal understanding, but by visible signs of composure. Calmness becomes this proof of discipline, and detachment becomes almost this desired trait to have that is now a part of people's personality, and even vulnerability is curated to appear redefined. And this transformation is not accidental because it reflects a cultural preference for legibility over complexity. And we've been taught to demonstrate this stability rather than to actually be living human beings that inhabit it, or to display healing rather than to actually experience it. It's so mind boggling to even think how emotional restraint has become a form of social currency. The literal appearance of equilibrium now substitutes for the effort of understanding. And when people's composure becomes the proof of growth, authenticity is disappearing. The logic behind, I think, all of these invisible examinations is simple but very dangerous, very corrosive. I think if maturity equals control, if not having a crash out means you are a perfect representation of healing, to some extent may be true, but then any spontaneous emotion then reads as regression. Like missing someone becomes evidence of failure. Needing reassurance is a signal of a lack of evolution. And the human self becomes this object of constant supervision where we're all self improvement projects that need to be managed rather than a real person, a presence to be understood. And this is not awareness, it's simply surveillance that is masquerading as wisdom. It's now become this thing where digital culture intensifies this habit of self observation, and this internal narrative is now externalized through social media posts, captions, and very curated, even photo dumps. Like, reflection is staged, not lived, and insight is now packaged into these very curated, consumable fragments, something short enough to share, polished enough to impress. And the result is this illusion of clarity that represents presentation and rewards presentation over precision, and depth that people once craved is replaced by design. And what gets lost in this conversation, in this transformation, is the truth that genuine awareness is inherently disorderly, and understanding yourself rarely feels symmetrical. It arrives through confusion, repetition, contradictions, even, and just the discomfort of seeing the same pattern resurface until it's finally recognized. And emotional fluency develops not from erasing this chaos, but from learning to read it accurately. And the anxiety of these so called life tests, the healing test, the detachment test, the not caring test, like all of this is in the belief that progress must always be visible and permanent. But in reality, growth is not a linear thing, ascent toward peacefulness. It is very much a continual negotiation between someone's comprehension and confusion. If someone were to revisit an old wound with greater accuracy and more knowledge, it isn't a relapse, it's refinement. And the capacity to re-encounter an emotion without collapsing into it is what real maturity looks like. I think self-knowledge was never meant to produce this final grade and to pass these fake tests that we've curated for ourselves. Its value lies in the capacity to observe yourself without immediate editing or correction, to see contradiction and allow it to exist. And I think awareness is not this destination that we need to be at. I think it's this ongoing calibration of perception. And the moment that even I stop performing coherence, I'll begin to understand myself, and you can begin to understand yourself. And in that sense, there is no real authentic test of emotional intelligence, only evidence of attention. And the work that any of us is not to appear evolved, but to actually remain engaged and to trace the movement of our minds with honesty, even if it refuses to resolve neatly. Because unesthetic work doesn't mean it's not valid and real, because growth at its literal core is not the perfection of self-control, it's the precision of self-perception. And that is my food for thought. I'm now gonna finish my taco.